Okay, there's some graphing review problems, and these are a little more complicated. We've got different aspects going on. We always want to get these in the form a sine b times x minus c plus d, because you can see that a is the amplitude, b is the period, or it tells us the period. It tells us because the period is 2 pi over b, so it indicates the period. C is the horizontal shift with the opposite sign, and d is the vertical shift with the same sign. So this is almost in that form. I can see my amplitude, I can see my vertical shift, but my period and my horizontal shift is a little bit up in the air. So let's fix this a little bit. So first of all, we'll divide the two out here, so we get y equals because I want just the x there, so it looks like this form here. And if I divide by 2 or multiply by 1/2, this is going to be the same thing as plus pi over 4. I can always check this out just by distributing. 2x, 2 times x is 2x, and 2 pi over 4 is pi over 2. So there we go. So now this tells me I've got a amplitude of 3. My period is 2 pi over 2, which is going to be pi. I got a horizontal shift of, and it's going to be opposite sign, negative pi over 4, because there's a minus sign up here. And I got a vertical shift of 1. Okay, so now I got to graph this guy. And we're just going to do one period. So I left these open so I can write actually the values I want. So my period is going to be pi. So this is pi over 2, this is pi over 4, and this is 3 pi over 4. So those are my subdivisions. I normally go from here to here, one period, but I have a horizontal shift of pi over 4 to the left. So these are all increments of pi over 4. This is 0, so it works out really good. So one complete cycle, this will be negative pi over 4. I'm going to start from here. So instead of going from here to here, which is pi, I'm going to move it over pi over 4 to the left and go from here to here. So I'll put some little brackets there. So that's going to be, and these are my 5. Remember we had 5 key points, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or four subintervals. So there we go. Now my horizontal shift is plus 1, so that's, we're going to call this 1. So this is my shift line, and I usually use a kind of a dash line, so everything's going to be relative to that line. Okay. And we know the sign is 0, 0, so I'm usually going to start here. And even if I put this in, you could always put this in. If I put negative pi over 4 here for x, 2 times negative pi over 4 is negative pi over 2, plus pi over 2 is 0, sine is 0, 0, so I just have 1. See, so I'm going to start at 1. So that's my first point. You can always put those in to double check. Then I know I'm going to go up 3 over the next interval. That's going to be my 1, 2, 3. My amplitude is 3. I come back to the 0 line in my next increment. Then I go down 3. 1, 2, 3 down here. And then back to the 0 line. So there you go. So there's your 5 key points. And then we just, I got to be careful on this one because this is really high. So it's going to go up like this. Come back down. Make sure it's rounded, not pointed. And there you go. So there's your curve. I drew all this up ahead of time so I wouldn't have any issues. And you could run as many cycles as you want, but just one to be fine for me. Okay? So that makes that. I hope that makes sense.